Hey guys, it's Madison Estes. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the new A24 movie X. This movie has everything. Texas alligators, a barnyard porno, old people sex. Seriously though, Stefan would be so excited. This movie really does have all of those things. This movie is about a group of young filmmakers that want to make an artsy adult film, so they rent a cabin in rural Texas in order to shoot their porno there. The elderly couple that own the property end up catching them, and then things go pretty badly for the protagonist soon after that. I would say out of all of the main characters that Maxine is the one who is the most developed. We know what her goals are. She tells her boyfriend that she wants the whole world to know her name. She wants to use this film to get famous. Early on in the first scene with her, we see a moment of vulnerability. She's looking into a mirror. She seems like she might be a little bit insecure because she has some freckles on one side of her face and not the other, so there's a little bit of asymmetry there. But, she's in front of the mirror and she's, repeating affirmations to herself. And it also seems, again, like she's very dedicated to her goals of, becoming famous and, I guess sort of maybe accepting herself as well. I really liked Brittany Snow's character. This character doesn't get a whole lot of development, but she's just a fun character. Like, she has some of the best lines. Her boyfriend, or her sometimes boyfriend, tells her that he loves her, and she says, "Bless your heart," and I just love that response. Like, the delivery and everything was perfect. She just has some of the best lines in the movie, but she's also, even though she comes across a little bit stuck up sometimes, she's also, like, really sweet too. Like, during this one scene, she's on the pier with the elderly lady, and she thinks that the lady is, like, helpless and confused, and she's, like, trying to help her. So I just really liked this character. I also really liked that she, not only is she sassy, but she also has, some kindness and compassion as well. You don't see that too much. You don't see characters that have, all these different sides. So I really liked that, and I felt like, this is probably my favorite character in the story, even though, again, there wasn't a whole lot of development with her. I just really liked this character. There's two other characters that seem to have a little bit of development over the course of the film, and that's RJ and Lorraine. RJ and Lorraine are a couple. RJ is the cameraman, and Lorraine seems to be kind of helping him out with other parts of the technical aspects of filming, like, holding the boom mic and things like that. So the group ends up teasing Lorraine a little bit in the middle of the movie because she's asking them questions about, well, how are you able to have sex with people that aren't your partners? Don't you get jealous? Don't you get insecure? And so they tease her a little bit, like, you don't understand, it's just sex, and kind of, implying that she's a prude. So then she says that she wants to be in the porno. RJ, the hypocrite, is like, no, you're not doing that. And so they kind of get into a little bit of a fight over it. The main guy who's kind of, running the whole project takes RJ outside and is like, look, she's going to do what she's going to do. You might as well just let her do whatever she wants because she's going to do it anyways. And that's exactly what happens. Lorraine ends up filming a scene in the movie, and then we cut to RJ in the shower crying. And I didn't have a whole lot of sympathy for him, honestly, because I was like, well, that's what you get for basically calling your girlfriend a prude instead of sticking up for her. I thought this film did a pretty good job of developing some of the characters in the first half of this movie, and I thought that it also did a good job setting up some tension within the group because of this subplot. Honestly, the first half of this film reminds me a lot of Zack and Miri Make a Porno. There was a lot of porn humor in this film. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was funny. I thought that it was different. It's not something you see in most horror films or most films in general. So before I get into spoilers, I want to talk a little bit about the cinematography aspect. This was a visually stunning film. There are so many beautiful rural shots. There's a really interesting aerial shot over the lake, and you'll understand why it's so interesting when you see the movie. And this film really looks like it was shot in the 70s. The hair, the makeup, the clothes, they're all on point. And I don't know what it is, but there's just something about the way it's shot where it really feels like this movie is from the 70s. Also, visually speaking, this film looked a lot like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. In some ways, at the beginning, it almost feels like a spiritual sequel to that movie. Honestly, if in the middle of the movie Leatherface had come running out of the barn, it would have just felt right. The cinematography and the way that this movie pays homage to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre are my favorite aspects of this film. I'm about to get into spoilers, so if you haven't seen this film yet, I would leave now, but before you do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. If you don't, an old lady's gonna crawl in a bed with you and play with your nipples. Or her nipples. I don't know. Just subscribe so you don't have to find out. So soon after, the elderly woman who I tried looking up her character's name on IMDb and I could not find it anywhere, so That's weird. Anyways, she finds out that they're filming a porno in the barn and she watches them like a frickin' creeper. She's a horny old lady and her husband, you know, can't do it for her anymore because he has a heart condition and he's afraid that if they have sex it'll kill him. So he's like constantly just, you know, sexually rejecting her, and, you know, these young kids are out, you know, having orgies in the barn and she's jealous. So she kind of comes on to Maxine, who rejects her, then she comes on to RJ, who rejects her. That's when she starts getting all stabby stab stab and slashy slash slash. After that, she just goes around murdering a bunch of people, and it seems like Maxine is the only one that she's really interested in sexually after that. There's this scene where the old lady crawls into bed with Maxine while she's sleeping, and she like starts touching Maxine and touching herself, and that was really super creepy, and it almost felt like it was sort of crossing a line, because it was just, I mean, I guess I have seen worse things in film, but it just felt so gross, and just, I kind of felt a little bit violated, like vicariously violated in that scene. It was probably the most disturbing thing I've seen in a very long time. A lot of people talked about the scene where she has sex with her husband, and they were like, why did I have to watch that scene? That was so disturbing. And honestly, like, that was just consensual sex, like, between two people that cared about each other. I actually had to go to the bathroom during that scene, so I didn't see most of it, thankfully, but, like, I don't know, there's no way that scene was as disturbing as the scene where, you know, Maxine was being touched against her will. So to me, that was like by far the most disturbing part of the film, and it was shot really well in a way that made you feel disgusted. I want to take a second to talk about the theme of this film. AV Club mentions that this movie examines the way that youth and others brings out the feeling and impact of age in ourselves, not to mention how we resist or respond when that happens. I feel like that's a really good summary of what this film is about thematically. There's definitely a lot of resentment by the elderly couple towards the younger people for their youth, and also possibly for their sexuality as well, because the elderly man, Howard, has a heart condition. He's afraid to have sex, so, you know, they're both kind of missing out on that aspect of their relationship. And then, you know, these young people come by and they're just all having sex with each other and just having wild orgies in the barn, and, you know, there's a lot of resentment, I think, you know, towards them for their freedom and their youth and all of these, you know, opportunities that they have. Most of them don't go around committing mass murder, but, you know, that's why it's a horror movie. No, but seriously, horror is a lot of times exaggeration of the truth, and I feel like, you know, showing this elderly couple who go around murdering these young people because they're jealous of, you know, their youth and their ability to be sexual, I feel like that's, like, a really interesting way to show, like, you know, the real life dynamic of some elderly people, again, being resentful of the youth for the opportunities that they have. This is something that disappointed me a little bit about the film, although this is not the film's fault, but I thought that they were setting up like a succubus storyline, and I thought that would have been so cool, because I don't think I've seen a succubus storyline in a very, very long time. And with a story like this about like these young filmmakers making a porno, and they just happen to like, you know, encounter a succubus that wants to like have sex with them to steal their youth, I just felt like that would have been so cool. I don't know, maybe I'll write that story, but I just thought that that would have been an awesome opportunity to use a succubus in like a slasher story. I don't know, it just kind of felt like a missed opportunity. Instead, it's just an elderly lady that's angry and resentful and going around stabbing people. I don't know, I just kind of wanted that supernatural element, because it just kind of felt like it was a straight up slasher, and which it was, and that's okay, but I just felt like it would have been really cool to have that element in the story. It would have been a surprise, because there wasn't a whole lot of surprises in this story, so that would have been really neat. Also, I was a little bit frustrated that whenever Jackson went to go help Howard find his wife who was missing, that he finds the car that's been submerged in the lake, and I can't remember if that was their car or if it was just, you know, somebody else's car, which would imply that they've done this before, that he doesn't like immediately go back to the cabin and tell everybody, hey, we need to get the heck out of here, something's wrong. He goes back to the old man and talks to him. Like, like, considering what he found in the lake, that doesn't make any sense for his character to do that. I thought that was very strange. I don't know why they didn't just have Howard finding Jackson, finding the car, and then shooting him. That would have made a lot more sense to me. Or just having Howard shoot Jackson as soon as they get to the lake. Like, why even let Jackson look around? I mean, if the whole ruse was just to get him away from everybody else so he could shoot him, why would you even bother letting him look around? That just, I don't know, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, honestly. My last gripe about this film is that it did a really good job of like setting up the characters and different relationship dynamics in the first half, but then in the second half of the film, all of the characters die alone. There's no like, oh, I'm looking for this character. I mean, they do kind of look for each other at first, but like, There's no, like, people teaming up together to try to fight the elderly people. I guess because if they did that, then they would win. Like, the only reason that the elderly couple was able to kill all these people is because they had the element of surprise most of the time, and because they got them alone. So I guess that's why they did that. But either way, it just felt, I don't know, it just felt like they were just being picked off one by one, and they were so isolated and spread apart. It didn't really make use of the relationship dynamics they developed in the first half. Like, if, you know, Lorraine and RJ had had an opportunity to be reunited at some point, that could have been really interesting, because, again, they were kind of fighting at the first half. So I always think it's really interesting in horror movies whenever characters' relationships are tested in the first half, and then, you know, there's some kind of resolution in the second half. There wasn't really anything like that in this film. They were all just kind of picked off one by one. None of the victims really interacted with each other at any point after they started getting killed off. So that was a little bit disappointing. I felt like there could have been a better payoff for all of the interesting relationship dynamics that were established in the first half of the film. Although the death scenes were really cool. I think my favorite death in the movie was Brittany Snow's character. Even though it was very obvious what was going to happen because of where they were standing and having the conversation, I still thought that it was really cool. And then, of course, there's the scene where RJ gets stabbed while Don't Fear the Reaper is playing, and, you know, the headlights are shining on them, and she starts dancing. That was just such a bizarre, interesting scene. I really liked that. I'm gonna give this film 3.5 out of 5 stars. I definitely felt like there were some missed opportunities with the characters and utilizing them in the last half of this film, and overall the plot just kind of felt like a traditional slasher film. But I do feel like, visually speaking, this film really brought more to the table than most slasher films. It did a really good job playing homage to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. The cinematography was really beautiful. Some of the deaths were really cool. It definitely offered something more than your typical slasher. So I'm curious to know what you guys think. Please leave a comment in the comment section below. I would love to know what you guys thought of X. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On this channel, I post book reviews, writing advice, horror content, and vlogs. And I just edited a horror anthology called Roadkill 6 Texas Horror by Texas writers. I'll include a link for this in the description box below if you want to check it out. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later.